Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me as always is my co-host, Austin Davidson.
Heyo.
It's Season 3, Episode 33. We are one day away from the Pittsburgh Steelers opening game against the Cleveland Browns. And there's certainly a lot to get to, but before we talk about the game, Austin, you wanted to open with a special announcement. You want to go ahead?
Yes. We know how we are doing the fantasy league that you could win a mystery signed jersey, but we didn't talk about where that mystery signed jersey is coming from, and that's Total Sports Enterprises. They're TSCshop.com. They provide Steelers, Penguins, Pirates stuff, and I highly recommend you check them out because they actually are going to be providing a jersey for another giveaway that we're doing. I got into contact with them. We actually wanted to get the jersey for this giveaway, but we ordered it before the email got answered, so we wanted to make sure we had something for the giveaway that we're doing right now. But they're going to be providing another one, and I highly recommend you guys check them out. They get their autographs directly from the source, so there's no middleman, and they make it the cheapest as possible because of that. I'll probably post to Instagram. I actually don't usually use our Instagram, but I'll post to Instagram some of the stuff I have from them. I have a signed Antonio Brown jersey from them. I have a signed David DeCastro jersey that came from them. I have a signed Martavis Bryant picture that's hanging by my wall from the 2015 playoffs when he made that crazy catch. I also have a signed Le'Veon Bell photo that isn't hung up yet, but I'm probably not going to hang it up anymore because I'm a little over that man's. But totally check out Total Sports Enterprises, TSCshop.com. And if you have a Vikings fan friend, they do Vikings as well. Just Steelers and Vikings, though. Anyhow, that we could continue on to the rest of the podcast.
All right. I'll also give a quick little endorsement. I highly recommend checking out their website. Austin was very nice and got me a graduation gift. It was the exact gift that we're doing for our giveaway, which is the whole mystery box jersey. Mine was a autographed Barry Foster jersey. Foster, of course, the Steelers single-season rushing yardage record holder. I forget the exact total, but I think it was like 1,600 something yards. But in any case, he has his own Steelers lore right there. So it's nice to have a part of Steelers history hanging up in my room. So I highly recommend checking out TSE on their website. All right. The big news to talk about before we get to the game, obviously, it's been the talk of the last two off seasons, and it's been Le'Veon Bell. There's been a lot going on, especially the last few weeks. There were reports that, his agent Adisa Bakari said that it was going to be pretty much the same as last year when he showed up on Labor Day and he was there for week one. He didn't show up on Labor Day, and then it seemed as though Steelers teammates were expecting him to show up on Wednesday. That never happened. He didn't show up on Thursday. He didn't show up on Friday. And then because he didn't show up, his teammates, specifically Ramon Foster, David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey, all had some very interesting things to say, mostly criticizing him, which is also interesting because it's important to mention that Ramon Foster is the Steelers' NFLPA union rep. And then in response to that, Bell saw all their comments on an Instagram post and just commented, "Whoa." And then beyond that, there was another report that Bell was going to be coming in on Saturday, which is today when we're recording this. And he didn't show up, so he forfeited $853,000 of his salary for one game check this week. That goes back into the Steelers' cap space. So James Conner is going to be starting as the team is left for Cleveland. A lot going on here. So I guess you want to talk a little bit about kind of what the offensive lineman said and why some national, I'm sure you've seen some national media members have given the indication that the Steelers have kind of gone overboard, at least with what some of them said. And then at the same point, there's they do have a right to be upset, but it's Bell trying to get his money. And then there's also the ridiculous aspect that so many national media members don't understand, that Bell can't sign an extension right now. He can technically get a bigger salary for the franchise tag this year, but Bell's playing on a one-year deal regardless this year, and he can't be traded until he gets signed. So there's a lot of moving parts here. It's a very confusing situation. Nobody's happy about this besides, people in the media, because it's something to talk about. But man, oh man, what a mess. And I guess where do you want to start with this?
It's just terrible. The whole media that thinks that, like, oh, you need to pay this man. Like, I've seen so many comments on anything that has to do with Le'Veon Bell is pay this man. Well, they can't. They have the offer on the table right now. The only thing that they could give him, and he's not signing it. He's not here. He just missed out on $800,000. So, like, it's just stupid. And again, you're correct on the other thing that, yeah, the Steelers can raise his pay for this year since he doesn't want to play. But what's the point? Like, why are you going to do that? Why are you going to just give in to a player that doesn't even want to be here? I mean, obviously money isn't that important because he just doesn't want to be here. He just lost out on $800,000. I mean, I know what he's going for is going to be a little bit more than $800,000 per game, but it's stupid, and it's like, why people want the Steelers to throw him more money to say come back and look desperate like that when everyone's confident in James Conner. Everyone is ready for James Conner. The Steelers still have their offensive line in front of them. This is the offensive line that when D'Angelo Williams was at the end of his line made him look great. They made D'Angelo Williams look great when he played. And I like D'Angelo Williams, so don't take that as a slight to him. He's been annoying me, though, on Twitter lately. He's been in favor of Bell a lot and fighting people on it, and his opinions are a little bit, they're out there. But regardless, back to the point, my point is this offensive line is still there. They could still block. Probably they're more important than Le'Veon Bell is. And I'm confident in James Conner, even if that offensive line isn't there. So there's no reason to throw more money at Bell, say, oh, please come back. Oh, we need you. No, that's not something I want to visit right now. Maybe if literally James Conner gets like 20 carries for 18 yards. All right, maybe you're like, okay, we really need to bring him back. And then like Jalen Samuels does the same, and then Stephen Ridley does the same. Then you throw money like, okay, we desperately need you. We'll give you money to come back here. But that's not the case. None of the running backs aren't going to fail when the offensive line is all healthy like the way they are. Even if the running backs aren't that good, the offensive line is going to make up for that because the offensive line is some of the best in the league. Even though they're not the best run blockers, they're still good enough to make the running backs look good. And you got to think the way Le'Veon Bell runs. The way Le'Veon Bell runs, the linemen have to block for him. Because Le'Veon Bell shifts in the backfield and just moves around and sits back there until he finds his hole. That is not a thing that Le'Veon Bell is going to be able to do if he goes to a team without an offensive line next year. He's not going to be able to sit back there because it's just going to be a tackle for a loss. The Steelers' offensive line allows him to do that. And now let's wrap that into why the offensive line is mad. The offensive line, a lot of people gave them flack, saying they should apologize and stuff. They said nothing wrong. They have the right to be mad because they were told one thing and then Le'Veon did another. And people compare it to Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack. Both their situations both got figured out. Mack got traded, Donald got the extension, and now the Rams have $85,000 worth of cap space left for this year. So the problem is with the Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack deal, they weren't franchise tagged. They still could have worked out a contract, both of them. That's why Aaron Donald did get his contract. That's why Khalil Mack went to the Bears and immediately got extended. It's different with Le'Veon Bell because of the franchise tag, and people don't understand that. People just want to keep ignoring that, so it almost becomes pointless for Le'Veon Bell to be sitting out. Like, he's giving up on the team, and as a team member, wouldn't you be pissed if your teammate was like, nah, I'm saving myself for the next team, next year. Yeah, I'm not committed to this year. It says I care more about myself and money than winning in my team. That's what I see. Maybe other people obviously do see a different side. Other people see, yeah, that's what he should be doing. And it's just really ridiculous in my eyes. It's like you go. One of the more ridiculous things I actually saw from this weekend is the agent saying, yeah, we want to know what Le'Veon Bell's plan is, and we think that the Steelers are going to run him into the ground. Yeah, he's going to do his job when he shows up. He's a workhorse. That's what he does. He rushes. He does great at it, and the Steelers use him that way. It's like me going to my job right now. I work at Stop and Shop, a grocery store, and I'll say my parents or my agent for some reason. My parents say, yeah, I want to know how much he's going to be packing out because I don't really want to. I don't really want him to work there if he's going to be packing out like this much amount of groceries. Like that's my job. That's what I do. Like it's stupid when you take it out of the football situation and put it into a normal situation. It's like demanding. Just I want to know how much work I'm going to do. It's so stupid. I really have developed a dislike for Le'Veon Bell's agent because he's stupid. I really don't like him. And Mike Tomlin fired back at that. This is really long, but I'm sorry. I'm going to cut it right after this. Mike Tomlin fired back like, yeah, we don't talk to agents. I was so happy about it. I've talked to the players directly, but sorry, I'm going to let you add anything else you want because I really went off about that. It really irks me. This really gets right under my skin and pisses me off, especially with the David Johnson news that we'll get to later. What do you have to add about the Le'Veon Bell saga that is currently happening?
I will say I understand why he's doing what he's doing. He's doing it because he wants to ensure his financial future as far as how much he's going to be making. I understand why he's doing it. I personally would not have. You think about his career, he hasn't made a whole lot of money. He had his rookie contract and then last year's franchise tag, which was, I think it was, $12.1 million or something like that. That's the most money. That was more than his entire rookie deal combined. And I find it hard to believe that he'd be willing to risk so much upfront money for this year. I do understand it, but I wouldn't have gone about it this way. And, it is a controversy of like him trying to get his and whatnot, but it's a little, again, it's more complicated because, as you mentioned, it's the franchise tag. It's this year, basically. I'm going to complain a little bit about the franchise tag as a concept in general because it keeps players from being really free agents because they can get tagged and tagged again. So I think that's something that you can see the players probably banging the table to get rid of, at least as it is right now in the upcoming CBA negotiations when they expire. It's a really frustrating situation, and there's not a whole lot to be happy about. And I don't understand. I can somewhat understand the whole people don't like what Foster and Pouncey were saying, but I think that they have a right to be upset for a couple of reasons. One is that this is a team that's competing for a Super Bowl, and Le'Veon Bell gives them the best chance to win a Super Bowl. And not having him be there is, again, it's like he has 1 foot out the door. And honestly, Austin, to be honest with you, I think he's been thinking about, almost a 1 foot out the door mentality for a while now. When he got hurt in the AFC Championship game, I wouldn't put it completely past him that he held himself out of that game because he was approaching free agency at that time too. That was before the Steelers tagged him for the first time. So it's just the attitude of 1 foot out the door, that it's already a problem when you've got a guy who doesn't want to be there or a guy who's thinking about free agency, and then it's another problem when he openly starts missing games and doesn't communicate with teammates. It is his prerogative to not talk to his teammates about when he's showing up, but again, it's the whole team mentality where it would really be appreciated, and the fact that he didn't reach out to them at all saying, all right, this is my plan or whatever, it's going to make them feel disrespected, and I think they have a right to be upset about that because that, again, shows that he's not caring about the team. It's a very tough situation. I do understand both sides of it, but I personally wish he would have handled this a little differently, and I think his agent going on radio shows right now is just, it makes me feel like Adisa Bakari is trying to fight his battles for him, and I get that that's kind of what he's supposed to do, but at least he should be just doing it with the team, not necessarily the media. And it feels like he's just hurting his case in my mind. And the sad irony, I don't want this to happen because I wouldn't wish injury upon anybody, but I feel like if Bell goes out there whenever he gets here, because again they were talking about him having his best season ever. You can't have your best season ever if you play 6 games that year, and the latest he could show up is week 10. You know, what would happen if Bell has some sort of catastrophic injury in one of those 6 games he plays? Then what would the point have been in missing all of those games, Austin? I'm not saying I would want that to happen or anything, but it's still like something could happen. So why not go out there and give it your all, like you said? I don't know. What do you think about that?
You have to be showcasing for other teams as well. Like, you're getting ready to leave, and you still have issues on your side. You still have been suspended and arrested in the past. You still have injury history in the past. And in my opinion, like you said, I do think he needs to be out there trying his hardest, not for the Steelers, but for the next team, so that he could get whatever he wants, whether it be 18 million, 19 million, 16, wherever the heck he's shooting for. He needs to be out there. Right now, in my mind, all he's proving is, yeah, he's hard to work with. He's hard to work with. If he doesn't get his way, he's gonna be a problem. He's gonna be a locker room problem. Like, his teammates are speaking out against him, and like, he's not proving anything but bad things. He's proving bad things and not helping his case right now. This is not. Don't get me wrong, though. A team is still going to give him $16.5 million or $17 million, regardless of if he showed up or not. He's still next season going to get that money, but it's just, if he's going to have less options. He's probably going to be offered less than what he's shooting for. I'm ready. At this point, I'm getting ready to hear, like, at the end of next season, $18 million deal for him, since he wanted AB money. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that, but that's my thoughts on the matter.
The worst part about this, I think, is that, first of all, it becomes almost a must-win game for the Steelers now. Every loss this season is going to get magnified if he's not there. And I think it's going to make even more of a problem. And this is the kind of thing that can make or break a team. I personally think it'll make the team this year, but it could be something that could really tear the team apart. I don't think that'll happen, but you could see how that could happen. And it's really frustrating because this is a team that's supposed to be making a serious run. And the other thing is that, again, this is an issue that's going to reload every week. It's the whole, like, when is he showing up? So we're talking about maybe another 9 more weeks of this talk. And I don't really want to have this kind of talk for 9 weeks, but I mean, what else is going to happen? Why would he show up any earlier now?
It's just going to be random. Whenever he shows up, it's going to be random. We're not going to know.
See, I almost felt like, and the other thing is, he's clearly not, if anything, he has more incentives to stay away now because of how his teammates responded to him. I don't know if he'd be in quite a rush to come back anyways, even if he felt bad about it. I don't know if he'd be wanting to run back into the locker room anyways right now, so it certainly could be a while. And the other thing, the whole roster exemption thing, I learned today that Bell doesn't have to accept the whole, like, not getting paid for the roster exemption. He can reject that. So,
like, wait, what do you mean he could reject it? Like,
apparently he doesn't have to so, like, he can be offered to be paid in full for the game checks during the exemption, and he doesn't have to sign if he's not given the money for it.
Really? That's interesting.
I don't know what that would mean whenever he shows up, like, say he shows up week 10. I don't know what that would mean, but I do know that he doesn't have to accept it, which, again, if you're going to hold the money back from him, which would make sense from the team's standpoint, from Bell's standpoint, why would you show up then?
Who knows? I wouldn't show up if I was Le'Veon Bell at that point, if I'm already in this deep.
Yeah, if you're already this far, why stop now? And it's such a unique and bizarre scenario that I've never seen in any. I guess the closest comparison would be Kawhi Leonard from the Toronto Raptors, formerly the San Antonio Spurs, but still, I don't know. There's so many layers to this. It is confusing, but oh man, So I guess we'll be talking more and more about this until Bell shows up or whenever. Until then, though, Austin, a couple other minor notes to talk about. You want to address those?
Yeah, sure. Both Marcus Tucker and Damone Patterson have been released from IR with injury settlements. Hopefully they could come back because that's the first step to coming back, getting released with injury settlements. And then I think the team has to put 3 weeks in between that to bring them back. So we'll see in 3 weeks if they're brought back. Maybe after the season they'll be brought back, but we'll see. I'm sure they're not going to just let go of Marcus Tucker. They really liked Marcus Tucker since he's been brought in.
All right. Going into week 1, we've got an interesting injury list. The Steelers are clean except for one player, and it's unfortunately a guy we've seen on the injury list far too often over the last year and a half, or I guess almost a year now. It's Vance McDonald, the tight end. He didn't practice, or he was limited in practice on Wednesday, then didn't practice Thursday or Friday. Downgraded to out with a foot injury. What does his loss mean for the Steelers?
I mean, it's honestly not that bad in the first game. Jesse James got 2 touchdowns against the Browns week 1 of last year. I mean, obviously you want the best guy out there, and Vance McDonald is the number 1 tight end. But I'm really not too worried because I think the Steelers' passing attack is already too much for the Steelers, too much for the Browns to handle, even without Vance McDonald. So I'm not really too worried about that, especially with Jesse James coming in there. What do you think about the loss of Vance McDonald for this game?
I think the ground game will reign supreme with weather conditions, and you want your best blocker out there, and McDonald's the best blocking tight end you have, so I think his loss definitely hurts. On the other side, for the Cleveland Browns, as of the time that I checked out the injury report, they had 2 players with game statuses. James Burgess, the linebacker with a concussion, was doubtful. Defensive back E.J. Gaines is out with a knee injury. Other players, Jannard Avery was a full participant in practice with a glute injury. Defensive tackle Trayvon Coley had a ankle injury, but he was a full practice participant. So was backup tight end Seth DeValve with a quad injury. Josh Gordon had a hamstring injury. He was full go. So were Desmond Harrison, Christian Kirksey, and Demarius Randall with knee and shoulder injuries. All full participants in practice on Friday the 7th. So a large injury list, but so far only one player declared out. I'll be honest with you, I think the most interesting one was probably Josh Gordon because Gordon's a really athletic guy, but those hamstring injuries can really be problems, and that could take away his biggest threat, which is his speed. So that could really be a beneficial aspect to this game for the Steelers' defense, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would agree. Josh Gordon is one of the more dangerous players the Browns have on offense, so having a hamstring injury might slow him down a little bit.
All right, let's get into this game. Week 1, Steelers and Browns, the oldest rivalry in the AFC. These two teams have played a lot over their history. The Steelers currently hold an advantage in the series of 74-58. The last 2 results from last season, the Steelers won on opening day in last year, 21-18. Jesse James, as you mentioned, the 2 touchdowns. Tyler Matakevich and Anthony Chickillo combined for a special teams touchdown as well. And then in Week 17 last year, Landry Jones in his final Steelers start leads them to victory 28-24 over the Browns. Stephen Ridley with a touchdown, Juju Smith-Schuster with a pair, 1 on a kick return and 1 on a pass from Jones. The Steelers have won 6 straight in this rivalry. The Steelers hold a 2-0 advantage in the postseason. And this one took a little while, but our fun fact for this matchup, since Ben Roethlisberger's era with the Steelers started in early 2004, they have played the Browns 28 times. In those 28 games over a 14-year stretch, the Steelers have started just 3 quarterbacks. Ben Roethlisberger obviously having the most. He's 22-2. A little asterisk there. One win that he got was not a start. It was the game where Landry Jones started and then got hurt early on, and Roethlisberger came off the bench and led the Steelers to victory. That start, however, gave Landry Jones a 3-0 record against the Browns, and Charlie Batch is the only other quarterback to start in that time, 1-1, a victory over the Browns in 2005, and a painful loss in 2012 where the Steelers turned the ball over 8 times. On the other side, the Browns have started 17 quarterbacks, I'll rattle off the names, see if you recognize any of them, Austin. Jeff Garcia, Trent Dilfer, Charlie Fry, Derek Anderson, Bruce Gradkowski, all 0-4 in that little stretch. Brady Quinn, a 1-0 record. Colt McCoy, Seneca Wallace, also 0-4. Brandon Whedon, 1-0. Thaddeus Lewis, Jason Campbell, 0-4. Brian Hoyer, 1-1. Johnny Manziel, Austin Davis, Cody Kessler, Robert Griffin, and Deshaun Kaiser, all 0-4. So Brandon Whedon, Brady Quinn, and Brian Hoyer are the only Browns quarterbacks to get wins. I'll be honest, I think Brian Hoyer is the best quarterback the Browns had in that stretch. I mean, I guess Derek Anderson was for one season, but Hoyer is the guy that led them to the most success.
Yeah, I think Hoyer's probably the best off of that list. That's a lot of bad quarterbacks.
At least against the Steelers. Obviously, none of those guys were multiple winners. If you're looking at overall career and wins against the Steelers, I'd have to go with Hoyer, even though Anderson was probably the best quarterback. So, obviously, last year the Browns 0-16 were not very good in a lot of areas. The Steelers 13-3, pretty good in a lot of areas. So, I want to talk a little bit about my interview with my friend John Gehring from 89.1 The Point. I talked a little bit about the Browns and I guess what they were going to have to do for this game in order to win. He was talking a little bit about the biggest key for the Browns defense was going to be holding the Steelers on third downs and getting off the field when they have the chance. A young and inexperienced defense can struggle and lose its confidence when they give up big third down plays. And he said that happened a lot last year. So it could really be a boost to your confidence when you get 3 and outs and get off the field in those big plays. So he believes the defensive efficiency is going to be important. And let's take a listen to what he has to say.
I think the biggest key right now for the Browns defense is going to be holding the Steelers on third down and getting off the field when they have the opportunity. Because with this young unit, they don't have a lot of experience on third down. That's one thing that has really hurt them in the past. It's a real confidence booster when you can get 3 and outs, get off the field quickly, get off the field on third down when given the opportunity. And also with a secondary that is still unproven. There's a lot of potential back there, but we just haven't seen it come together quite yet. I think it's important in those passing situations to hold their own, and hopefully the pass rush helps out with that as well. But third down, defensive efficiency, I think that's important.
That aggressiveness that John mentioned is my biggest fear going into this game. I think the Browns are going to be playing strong and angrily when it comes to pass rush, and they'll make the biggest struggle for the offense in this game, blocking up front. The best part of the Browns' defense is, without a doubt, their pass rush. Myles Garrett wanted to crack at Ben Roethlisberger last season, but unfortunately for him, he was injured week 1, and then Landry Jones started week 17 to rest Ben. But now Myles Garrett is hungry. But he isn't the only one to worry about. On the other side, Emmanuel Ogbah got 4 sacks last season at linebacker. And at linebacker, Joe Schobert and Christian Kirksey are pretty solid pass rushers, finishing with 3 and 3.5 sacks respectively in 2017. In my opinion, this game is actually going to be in the hands of the offensive line for the Steelers. Ben called them the most important position, and that may prove true in this game. The Steelers are really going to need big games out of their tackles to really keep the pressure off Ben. Other than that, I think the Steelers should have a relatively easy time on offense. The Steelers receivers outmatch the Browns defensive backs easily. Even if Denzel Ward turns out to be great, which even if he is great, it may not even matter. As Antonio Brown has proven, he can make great corners look silly. But then the Steelers have Juju Smith-Schuster behind them. And if they're putting Ward on Brown for the most part, which I expect them to do, I don't think the Browns have another cornerback good enough really to keep up with Juju. E.J. Gaines is out, leaving them with either Terrence Mitchell, who I thought was terrible for the Chiefs last season. I remember wondering who the heck he was in the first week where the Chiefs opened up against the Patriots, and he was just absolutely terrible out there. Then T.J. Carey, and then there's Denzel Rice, who Rice has never played in a regular season game since being brought into the league in 2015. He's been mostly a practice squad player most of his career. And I think T.J. Carey has the best chance against Juju, but watch out. If Brown gets shut out down this game, Juju may have a big one. We also don't really know how much James Washington will play, if at all. There's a possibility he isn't active this game, but especially if they're going to give Justin Hunter and Darius Hayward-Bay helmets, it's going to be interesting to watch. James Washington might be inactive, but he could be dangerous as well for the Browns. Him or Ryan Switzer and Justin Hunter. Then I think one of the things all Steelers fans are going to be focusing on in this game is James Conner. Obviously, with the Bell situation alive and roaring, I think everyone wants James Conner to be the hero in this story. He's playing it off like there isn't a lot of pressure, but there is a huge amount of pressure on him in this game. You know that if either he doesn't rush well, or if the Steelers lose, then they're just going to be, this is why the Steelers need Bell, or something stupid like that based off of one game. That being said, I think he's going to be the hero Pittsburgh wants. Let's be honest for a second. Bell's 4.0 yards per carry last season isn't that hard to beat. It wasn't that great of an average. And when Conner did rush last season, even in the few snaps he did, he looked fantastic. Then in the offseason, he improved his hands. We saw that in the preseason. And while I don't think he could be as big as a receiver as Le'Veon, him and Jalen Samuels can easily combine for Le'Veon-like numbers. Just like in the preseason game against Tennessee. He has the offensive line to help him, and Rosie Nix is still out there to block for him. And despite Cleveland having a solid rush defense last year, I think he can pull off a big game. And that really wraps up the offense for me. What do you have to say about the offense going into this game?
Well, going off of what John was saying, third down is definitely a critical part of every football game. I think he was specifically talking about winning battles on those crucial downs, how that can really help the Browns. The last couple of years, they just haven't been able to get consistent enough scoring from their offense, and that means that their defense has had to keep them in the game a lot of the time. They've been on the field a lot due to turnovers. They've been giving, short fields to defend, so it's been pretty tough for them. So it's obviously easy for them to get dejected if they have to face long 8 to 10 play drives, finally get the other team off the field, and then all of a sudden they're right back on there. That's tough. I'm going to be taking weather in the account of weather. I'm going to be taking weather and the way it's looking, it's going to impact this game into account a lot for this preview. And just to kind of elaborate, I believe it's I don't think it's a hurricane, but it's some sort of tropical tremor or tropical storm that's making its way north by Cleveland. It actually has already started raining pretty hard today. My mom was in Cleveland today, and she said that it was raining pretty much all day, and it's coming down hard now, and it's going to be raining all throughout tonight and all throughout tomorrow, and the winds are going to be approaching, if not, more than 40 miles an hour. So you think about that, and that's going to change the way I look at this game for a lot of different reasons. I've seen games where there's a lot of rain and a lot of wind, and it's not going to eliminate the passing game, but you're not going to see a ton of throws, I don't think. That makes the ground game for both teams very important. Last year in Week 1, the offensive line was honestly not very good in the ground game, and they were part of the reason the offense struggled. I really think this Bell situation is going to work out well for the team. They seem really motivated for me, and I think they're going to block well for James Conner. And just talking a little bit about the offensive line and how important they are, I'm biased because I played along the offensive line my entire football career from when I was growing up to high school. And I always believe that a great offensive line will do more for a team than a great running back as far as the running game itself goes. And I think a good example of that is the career of Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson's best years in the NFL came when he had the best offensive line in football. And without that, he was just a solid running back. Not that he wasn't good, but having a great offensive line does so much for you. And I think the Steelers have one of, if not the best units in football. Connor's going to be making his first start, and he's just primed for a huge day. Let me tell you, as Pittsburgh fans didn't really need another reason to root for him. Connor can quickly become the hero again, and I expect him to have a breakout performance. He lives for the big game atmosphere, and I think he's going to thrive in this one. I think the passing game is going to struggle a bit more than we might have expected. Obviously, the wind and rain is going to make it hard to throw the ball successfully. I wouldn't expect a ton of throws, maybe just 25, no more than that, unless if the Steelers are behind or something like that. Another reason for potential struggles, the Steelers are going to be short-handed up the middle with Vance McDonald, the tight end, out for this game. And there's uncertainty at the number 3 wide receiver position. It's probably going to be a combination of James Washington and Justin Hunter. Maybe we'll see a little bit of Ryan Switzer, but I wouldn't expect that. Hunter's listed as the number 3 receiver right now, but Washington projects as the better player over time. But I'll be honest, I'm not super thrilled about either right now because Hunter's a very inconsistent player, and Washington has never gotten a pass caught from Ben Roethlisberger in a game yet. So with those guys and their uncertainty, and then Switzer obviously never having caught a pass from Ben either, I feel like it's going to be an inconsistent play for them when it's a Roethlisberger target to them. So I'd expect there's kind of a feeling out process for them. So I wouldn't expect a ton from those guys. And finally, and most importantly, I don't think this is being talked about enough. Antonio Brown is going to be playing for the first time in a very long time. He missed almost all of training camp this year with an injury, and he's missed more practice time this preseason than he has in most of his career prior to this. I think it's reasonable to suggest the Browns going to have a bit of an off performance by his standards. Although he is healthy now, he's probably going to be guarded by a rookie, but if the rust can affect Le'Veon Bell coming out of the gate slow like he did last year, it could have a similar, maybe not as extreme, but a similar effect on Brown as well. I think those are things to consider. And obviously the guy you want to pay attention to on the Browns defense, John mentioned him before, is Myles Garrett. He's a guy you have to get blocked, and James Conner's going to have his work cut out helping out Alejandro Villanueva, and that's a guy you have to keep your eye on. Don't let him get to the quarterback. On the other side, most of the spotlight for the Browns offense is going to be on the receivers, but John made a point of talking about the running backs because there's a trio of guys there, and the guy he wanted to focus on was Duke Johnson. He believes he's going to be very important to the outcome of this game. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Well, this week I would give the edge to Duke Johnson as far as being the most important, just because he can hurt you in so many different ways. And with the Pittsburgh defense that they've been declining these past couple seasons, especially their secondary, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's the more vulnerable area of their team. So a running back that can come out of the backfield and actually get some yards vertically down the field in the passing game, I think he'll be critical. But the other two will also certainly have their place in this game because they really need to establish their running game in order to open up that passing game.
One thing I am worried about in this game are the inside linebackers. I still don't feel sold on Sean Bostic being the starter and feel like the Browns may attack him by possibly trying to create matchups where they will get him having to cover Duke Johnson or something, knowing that he isn't fast enough to keep up. Duke Johnson is such a dynamic player. The thought of him matching up with the linebackers worries me a bit, but we'll see what happens. We'll see how the Steelers handle that. But speaking of Browns running backs, Steelers can't forget about Carlos Hyde. I felt like Hyde was super disrespected coming into this preseason, and then he had a really solid preseason performance to remind everyone he was a solid running back in San Fran. And Steelers need to respect him and his pass-catching abilities as well. As for the rest of the team, a few weeks ago, I would have sworn the Steelers were going to see Baker Mayfield week one after it looking like Tyrod Taylor suffered what looked to be a bad injury in a preseason game, but Taylor's fine and will be the starting quarterback in this game. Playing against Tyrod, in my opinion, is actually harder. He's a mobile quarterback that doesn't make many mistakes. He may not drive the ball downfield, but he doesn't turn the ball over either. I would think a rookie in his first game might have those issues, which is why I wish the Steelers got to play Baker a little bit more. But it's probably better to have a challenge and know your opponent anyway. A key difference this year for Tyrod is that he actually has capable receivers in Jarvis Landry, Josh Gordon, and rookie Antonio Callaway. I'm personally only scared of Gordon and Callaway, even after the Browns came out and said Gordon wouldn't be starting. I just think Jarvis Landry has been overrated since he's been drafted. He catches dink and dunk passes on a wide receiver screens and little short 2-yard out routes, and somehow that made people think he's great. I'm not sold. I don't think he's that great. But he may end up as Tyrod Taylor's favorite target because of their play styles. But he's really not someone I worry about. Now, Josh Gordon scares me. I know it's been a while since he finished with the most receiving yards in a season, and he's not starting, but he looked good when he came back to play last year, and not starting could mean he's just not going to be on the field for the first snap and will come in on the next play and finish the game, and he'll play every other snap of offense. So I don't really read into that too much. I can't really say who will be covering him. I don't think anyone is going to shadow him, but I will be worried when Artie Burns match up against him, as Artie's inconsistent play has worried me since he's been drafted. Luckily, last season he finished off on a really great note. Artie didn't really play inconsistently towards the end, but after that, then Callaway is just sort of a mystery box. Maybe he's just trash, but maybe he's great. We've never seen him play, so the surprise sort of worries me, but I do think the Steelers corners can handle him if need be. But if they can't, it's up to the safeties. And we're actually hit with a surprise this week at the safety position, being told that Terrell Edmonds will be starting over Morgan Burnett at strong safety. I don't think either of us expected that. Well, Burnett hasn't even been on the injury report. It just came out of nowhere. It's going to be interesting to see how Edmonds handles the starting job, but I'm actually not that worried. I think he will be fine. It's Sean Davis that I'm worried about. After having a fantastic rookie year, he had a sophomore slump this past season, and with his position change, he needs to have a big year. I think the change will help him, as I think he fits better at free safety, but I'm going to be watching him carefully in this game to see how he does. But next, let's talk about some pass rush. Simply put, this Browns offensive line is bad. On a team that is not so good, this is the worst group they have, getting even worse from last season when they were bad last year as well. They didn't even know who they were starting at left tackle until Friday, settling on undrafted free agent rookie Desmond Harrison. Then another thing going in the Steelers' way is they have familiarity with Browns right tackle Chris Hubbard, who is obviously a former Steeler. I really think the pass rush may run rampant in this game, especially Cameron Hayward and Bud Dupree, who will be going up against the undrafted free agent rookie. It's going to be a rough welcoming that he has to go up against Cameron Hayward for the most part. Let's just put it that way. Bud Dupree isn't obviously that scary. Bud Dupree's pass rush has been questionable, but going against Cameron Hayward is not going to be easy. But like last year, this may end up as a 6 or 7 sack game, and I'm not ruling out P.J. Watt and Stephon Tuitt having big games either, since they have experience going against Chris Hubbard in practice last year. I think that they might be able to cause some trouble as well, and that's not even it. The inside of the Browns' offensive line isn't the greatest either. I just think it's stronger than the outsides. I actually like Chris Hubbard. I can't say that he's not a good player. I just think the Steelers' familiarity with him might hurt him with that. But that's what I have to say about the defense. What do you have to say about the defense going into this game?
Well, based off of what John was saying, Johnson's definitely unique talent, and he flies under the radar a bit. He had 74 catches last season, and he's not a starting running back. As far as how the Steelers approach this game on defense goes, as far as how to contain Johnson, I'd expect them to do what they almost always do, and that's play zone defense the majority of the time. My concerns about him would be a little quelled depending on how, again, the weather plays into this game, as Johnson's not going to have as much traction and won't be able to use his separational speed to get away from defenders as much, so I feel a little bit better about that. But I think the weather will play into the advantage of the Steelers' defense again. Guys like Johnson and Gordon are going to have trouble on the outside, and you think David Njoku, a guy who John also praised in the interview, he talked about what a great athlete he is. He might be limited in this kind of weather as well. The thing I'm most concerned about with the weather, though, would be the footing of the pass rushers. Tyrod Taylor is a guy who rarely turns the ball over, but will take sacks. I think he was sacked 40-plus times the last 3 seasons. The Steelers need to be able to take advantage and force the issue. That hasn't been a problem the last few games against the Browns. The last 6 games, going back to 2015, the Steelers have sacked the Browns quarterback an average of 6.3 sacks per game, and last season it was 7 and 6, respectively. History suggests this will continue, especially with an undrafted free agent starting on the blind side after Joe Thomas's retirement. I will worry about bad field conditions with pass rushers due to the fact that they struggle to get footing, but the thing I'll be watching mostly for, not so much individuals, I will be, but the thing I most want to see are the biggest things that were frustrating with last season's defense unraveling. and that was giving up big plays, particularly pass plays at the end of the season, which I don't think will be as huge of a deal as far as deep pass plays, like long completions, because of the weather. But this will be a big one, is missed tackles with the whole slippery field conditions. These can be morphed together at times, and last year it really did cost the Steelers, but with a relatively healthy unit going into this season, I'm hoping to see less communications breakdowns. And as we saw in the Titans preseason game, they were pretty sure-handed tacklers, especially in the secondary. My eyes will be on Artie Burns, Sean Davis, and Terrell Edmonds. I want to see how often the Steelers go with the 2 or 3 safety look and take the extra inside linebacker off the field, as well as how TJ Watt and Bud Dupree play. Are they still going to be flipping sides? How good is Watt going to look? Because he didn't play at all in the preseason. So there's definitely a lot to watch with the defense going into this game. As far as special teams go, Austin, they really kicked off last season with quite the big splash play. Is there any chance we're going to see a repeat of that this upcoming game?
I do hope so. This special teams unit is probably one of the best the Steelers have had in terms of coverage teams, and may be able to make something like that happen. Maybe just a forced fumble and recovery, but I don't know. I just feel really good about this unit with Nat Burr, Rosie Nix, Tyler Matakevich, LJ Ford, and Darius Hayward-Bay. I'm going to be monitoring who's the better punter in this game, though. Get ready for this year, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be criticizing Barry even more this year, as I thought Matt Weil should have won the job. So that's going to be something I'm going to be moaning about all year on special teams. It's going to be, okay, what was Barry's average? Where was he kicking from? How many were inside the 20? How many were inside the 10? And I'm just going to be super critical about it because I'm a little bit bitter. That's the best way to put it. I'm a little bit bitter about it. But to wrap up special teams, Chris Boswell should be the better of the 2 kickers in this game. He looks as good as ever, so I don't expect any problems from him, even in the rain. And I think I read that it's going to be up to 30-mile-per-hour winds. That might have an effect. That might be rough. But I think he could still handle it. I think he is one of the better kickers in the league now. So what do you have to say about special teams?
Well, obviously, if the game were to come down to a kick, I'd feel better about having Chris Boswell striding out there for the game-winning attempt as opposed to just about anybody else. So you have to like Boswell as the better kicker. Barry will be a question mark, but the return games probably are not going to be a factor in this game whatsoever. With the field conditions likely being bad, you're not going to see much room or much speed on the field as far as being able to return stuff, so don't expect a lot of big, long returns. The real attention, as you mentioned, has to be paid attention to long snappers, kickers, and punters. The snappers have to make an accurate snap 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage with 30 to 40 mile-per-hour winds. That is harder than it looks, trust me. The kickers and punters are going to need to be able to get enough on their kicks, but keep them low line drives if they're kicking into the wind, so that way it doesn't blow the kick back. Or if they're using it, they need to make sure that they give it enough air so that the ball will be carried, but again, maybe not too much in the case of a punter where they're trying to avoid getting it too far for a touchback. So it's certainly an interesting scenario, but you have to play the wind to your advantage, and kicking is going to be tough in this game for sure. This will be possibly where the game is won and lost because of the special teams battle through the inclement weather. All right, that'll wrap up the regular preview. What is going to be the key on offense for the Steelers to win this game?
On offense, it's going to be keeping the pocket clean. If the Steelers can limit the sacks, pressure, and quarterback hits in this game, it should be an easy one for the Steelers, as it is. That is my one big fear of the Cleveland defense, is their pass rush coming into this game. What is the key on offense in your opinion?
It's going to be the red zone offense. This is the first time we'll get to see Randy Fichtner's offense in the red zone, hopefully, and what he does differently than Todd Haley and Bruce Arians before him. We know they're talented enough to move the ball on any defense. The key is being able to score when you get the ball inside the 20. The Browns have a good front seven, so being able to run the ball in the red zone may be difficult, and that's always the easiest way to get yourself points in the red zone, is to be able to run in the red zone. But you've got to come up with big plays in the big area of the field, and this is going to be an important one, especially with possibly struggling to throw the ball in the wind. You need to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to give yourself a chance to win in the red zone. So that's definitely my key on offense. On the flip side, Austin, what is the key on defense?
On defense, it's literally the opposite of my offensive key. It's be disruptive behind the line. Tyrod doesn't make many mistakes, so this is going to be about driving him into the ground and also limiting what the running backs can do by getting at least a few tackles for a loss in this one. What is your defensive key?
Stop the run and make Tyrod Taylor beat you. Taylor's never been a guy that's known as putting the team on his back and making his best plays when he's behind. He's known as a guy that's good to have when you're in front, and he needs to make efficient, high-percentage throws. He tends to hesitate with deep passes down the field against defensive backs, and he'll hold on to the ball too long, which is why he always has high sacks against. If you want to stop the Browns' offense in this one, you have to stop the run, get an early lead, and make Tyrod Taylor come from behind because it's not something he's good at. Who is your offensive X factor in this one, Austin?
In this one, it's going to be left tackle Alejandro Villanueva. He's the blindside tackle and will be going up against Myles Garrett, which is probably going to be a tough matchup, making him my X factor. Who is your offensive X factor?
It's running back James Conner, his first career NFL start. I already said it earlier. I think a breakout performance is coming. He lived for the big game in college and has the school record for rushing yardage in a bowl game for Pittsburgh. In the second game of his senior season, after beating cancer, going up against Penn State, he was a monster. I feel really good about him, particularly as a runner. But for him to have a good day, he has to be better in pass protection than we've seen throughout his short career, and above everything else, he needs to be able to help Villanueva on the outside with chip blocks. And when they send blitzes on the inside, he needs to be able to challenge effectively, because they're going to try to get Garrett on those one-on-one matchups with Villanueva, as you said. We saw on Thursday how bad pass protection can really hurt an offense. And I'm looking at you, Devontae Freeman. That was not good. On the other end, Austin, who's your defensive X factor?
For defense, it's John Bostic. He's going to be the starting inside linebacker, and I'm not really excited about it at this point, but it is what it is. He's who I think is the weak spot on the defense coming into this game, so he's going to need to play pretty well, which is why he's my defensive X factor. I also want to see an improvement in tackles from last year from him. Like, I want to see him coming in and making an actual difference and actually bringing guys down, because that's what he was brought in to do. He's a very surefire guy that could get tackles back when he was on the Colts and on the Bears. So I want to see that from him. Who is your defensive X factor?
It's the rookie Terrell Edmunds, his first NFL start for the first-round pick. He was solid in the preseason, but now is when the games matter. He has a chance to prove people like us wrong who thought he was a reach. I expect to see a lot of him early and often, especially around the line of scrimmage. And I'm hoping to see him spend most of the time shadowing the Browns' athletic tight end David Njoku or their top receiving back Duke Johnson. The weather, again, might have a negative impact on Edmunds' play, but I still feel pretty good about him being able to have a good impact for the Steelers as far as potentially winning this game. All right, let's move on to NFL news. Obviously, you mentioned the whole David contract extension. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Cardinals running back David Johnson has just signed a 3-year, $39 million contract extension worth up to $45 million. So base, it is $13 million a year. At its max, it's $15 million a year, and that includes $30 million guaranteed. And it's just kind of rough to look at. I know David Johnson tore his ACL, but I mean, it's less than what Le'Veon Bell was offered. And Le'Veon has injury history as well from different seasons with his MCL and stuff. And then he also has suspension history that David Johnson does not. And it just makes you think wow, the Steelers could have had David Johnson. And hey, maybe I'll be regretting this in a second. And maybe tomorrow David Johnson doesn't bounce back from his ACL tear. Maybe he's just terrible tomorrow, which I hope not, because I really like David Johnson, but we'll see. It just kind of hurts. Do you have anything to say about David Johnson's extension?
I would not have given him an extension right after tearing his ACL. I think that could be a mistake. That's all I have to say.
Good.
Speaking of ACLs, Keanu Neal of the Falcons tore his ACL on Thursday night. That's a crushing blow to a team that just can't score on the Eagles at all.
Oh, yeah. That was terrible. I love Keanu Neal. And it was just, as soon as I saw it, me and my Eagles fan friend were like, he tore his ACL. Everyone else didn't think so. It's always when you're in the open field and you're not touched by anyone else that it's going to be an ACL tear. He even thought he was fine. He got back out on the field, I think, once actually with his ACL tear. But that's always going to happen. When you suffer an injury like that, it's going to be an ACL.
And as far as that game goes, the Eagles won an ugly early game against the Falcons. The first half was borderline unwatchable as far as the Eagles' offense goes. They just could not get anything going. But the Falcons just could not punch it in. They were downright pitiful whenever they got inside the Eagles' 20-yard line. And the Eagles were able to go ahead 18-12. The Falcons with the chance to win it in the same end zone that they were denied last year in the playoffs. And they get 5 plays this time on a 4th and goal. They get an extra play with 1 second left due to an illegal contact. And I don't think Matt Ryan threw a catchable ball those last 5 plays at all. I think every pass was just horrifically awful. And the play calling by Steve Sarkisian was just incredibly questionable at best. That was just completely it was a horrible stain on the Falcons season, and it's early, but for a team that was thought to be possibly coming back and making a run at the Super Bowl after a disappointing year last year, I don't see what there is to like about this team. And I don't know, what do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. Matt Ryan looked terrible, but Sarkisian, something that he just looked really bad out there, especially when you think about it. They could have tied up the game on that last play if Sarkisian didn't decide on, I think it was the opening drive of the game for the Falcons to go for it on 4th and goal. I thought you should have just taken those early points and just played it safe, gone the field goal to take the early lead, and that would have put the Steelers at down 18-15 at that time. I mean, obviously everything changes, but if they get that field goal, but they could have tied it. They would have been able to tie it up had everything gone the same from then on there. So I really don't like Sarkisian. Since they lost Shanahan, the Falcons have had a rough time on offense. Shanahan must be really, really great because he went from giving Matt Ryan an MVP season to Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was always average to me. Matt Ryan is now sinking really, really bad. Last year wasn't good, and now at least the opening game was bad. He needs to do better than that for what he's being paid, especially since he just got an extension. That's terrible. That's what I think of the game.
How differently would we be looking at Matt Ryan and the rest of the NFL landscape would be looking at him if the Falcons hung on to win that Super Bowl?
I can't even answer that question. I think that Falcons fan would be losing their mind at this point. At this point, that he's fell off so bad.
I feel like they would be upset, but I still don't think it would be as bad because it would be like he's still our savior. He's still a Super Bowl champion. I feel like it wouldn't be the sky is falling so much as it would just be like, all right, that's okay. It's just, one bad year and one bad game. But I think now it's just the pressure's always on now because of that game. So anyways, the Eagles, I believe, were 2-point favorites, and I did pick them to cover, so I started out this year 1-0. Austin went with the Falcons winning outright. So I'll take that as a short moral victory because I know Austin cleaned pretty well last year, so I'll take that for the time being. Let's get to the rest of the games. And there could be a chance the Steelers game is postponed, by the way, but I haven't seen anything that indicates that's going to happen, but I know it was something they were talking about. So
there's supposed to be no lightning, so they said the chance of delay is super, super low because lightning is the only time they ever delay football games. And I looked it up right before we started podcasting. They said no expected lightning.
Yeah, so something drastic would have to change for that to happen. All right, week 1, the opening games of the day, 1 o'clock. The Cincinnati Bengals and Andy Dalton, AJ Green heading to Indianapolis to face Andrew Luck, who's going to play his first game in about a year and a half, we're approaching 2 years now. The Colts are getting 3 points at home. Who do you like in this one?
I like the Bengals to win outright. I've never liked Andrew Luck, even when he was healthy, and this is going to be a rough welcoming to him. I also think the Colts team as a whole is kind of bad. It's one of the worst in the league. It's just they don't really have much talent. Their talent that they do have is mediocre, and they're banking on Andrew Luck to be great. And that's not he hasn't played football in a very long time now, a regular season game at least. So I'm going to pick the Bengals to win outright, even though the Colts are surprisingly favored by 3. What do you think for this game?
I don't get what all the hate on the Bengals is all of a sudden. I know they aren't a great team, but they have their standouts on defense in Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins, and they've got a capable, not a spectacular, an unspectacular really quarterback in Andy Dalton, and a great receiver in A.J. Green. I like the Bengals' chances on the road in this one. I think Andrew Luck is a good quarterback if he can still be a good quarterback if he manages to get healthy again. But I think your first game in almost 2 years, there's definitely going to be rust. I think he's going to have a tough time. And like you said, the rest of the Colts team just isn't that good. So I'll take the Bengals to win outright as well. Titans at Dolphins, 1 o'clock. The Titans are getting 1 point on the road. I was thinking about taking the Titans to cover, but for whatever reason, I don't really have much logic other than I really did not like what I saw from the Titans in the third preseason game. And for that reason alone, I'm going to take the Dolphins to win outright just because I don't like what I see from Mariota and the Titans offense. I just don't think they're very good.
Well, I'm going to take the Titans to cover despite all of that. I don't like the Dolphins even worse. I don't like the Titans, but I think the Dolphins are even worse than that. I just really don't like their team. Like, Ryan Tannehill is average at best. Or, I mean, maybe he's just sitting around the average. I don't know. They don't have a wide receiver that's capable at all of doing anything. I don't like having to throw Mike Gesicki right out there. Their rookie tight end. And then their defense is like nothing to write home about. They were a really bad run defense last year, and that was with Nkoudamong Suh. And now they don't have Sue. They don't have any. Like Rashad Jones is like the most interesting person on defense for me. I like Rashad Jones, but like that's really it. I don't like the Dolphins, so I'm going to pick the Titans to cover.
The 49ers on the road in Minnesota at 1 p.m. The Vikings are getting 6.5 points at home. Who do you like in this one?
I'm actually going to take the 49ers plus 6.5. You heard me talk about how Shanahan helped Matt Ryan a lot. I really think Shanahan with Garoppolo is going to be great for them. I think that even though we don't have a big sample size on Garoppolo, I do think he's going to work out. I don't think they could beat Minnesota, but I think they're going to keep it close enough where the 49ers keep it within 6.5 points. What do you have here?
I don't get what the whole love affair is with Jimmy Garoppolo. He got paid like he's won a Super Bowl, and I think he's thrown 7 touchdowns in his career to 5 interceptions. I think that's the most overhyped team in football. I really would be shocked if the 49ers won more than 9 games this year. So I'm going to take the Vikings to cover convincingly. Texans at Patriots, 1 o'clock. The Patriots, I felt like this was kind of surprising. They're getting 6 points at home. I'm going to take the Texans plus 6. I don't have enough confidence in Deshaun Watson yet to pick them to win. But to be honest with you, if there was a game for the Patriots to lose, you think about it, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady's worst months are in September. They were, I think, 2-2 last year, or they were around there. They were 2-2 a couple years ago in September too, and they're going to be without Julian Edelman this month too. So there's a lot of reasons to suggest that the Patriots are vulnerable right now. But that being said, I think they eke out a close victory over the Texans at home.
I'm gonna actually pick the Texans to win outright here. I think that the Texans should have won last year. The Texans were so close. They basically had it in their hands, and then they lost like last second. I believe the game ended 33-30. The Patriots' defense got worse. They stayed the same. But the Patriots' offense got worse. That I can say confidently because now their number one receiver is Chris Hogan. They don't really have anyone behind that. And that's it. That's all they got. The Texans, however, got better. The Texans, not because I added anyone, because J.J. Watt is coming back from injury. Whitney Merciless is coming back from injury. They got all these guys that weren't playing last year against the Patriots, and now they have Deshaun Watson coming back, who really diced up the Patriots the first time. He had a really good game against the Patriots. And I can't remember if Will Fuller played the first time, but he's got Will Fuller too. I'm not fully confident if he was there or not. I don't think he was, but I think that the Texans can win this one outright and kind of shock the Patriots. Not that it's going to hurt the Patriots. Like you said, the Patriots are just bad in September for whatever reason. But, yeah, Texas went outright.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Ryan Fitzpatrick at the helm in New Orleans at 1 o'clock to face the Saints in the Superdome. Saints are getting 9.5 at home. Who you got?
I got the Saints covering. I think the Buccaneers are just bad. What do you have?
I'm actually going to take the Buccaneers plus 9.5 because of the fact that this is a divisional game. It's early on. There's a tendency for there to be rust in these early season games. I'll give the Bucs a fighting chance in this one, and that's a large spread. But you would think that the Saints are going to win pretty handily. It's going to be Alvin Kamara's backfield on his own. I don't know. I feel like this is the makings of a closer game than people think. So I'll take the Buccaneers plus 9.5. Jaguars at Giants, 1 o'clock. Jaguars are getting 3 points on the road over the Giants and Saquon Barkley. Who you got?
This one really messed with me. I went back and forth on how I wanted to do this so much because it all comes down to Bortles. And I think that the Giants might have improved in this offseason, and the fact that they changed their coaching staff all around. I think they might have gotten better. I'm just worried that Bortles is going to throw 5 interceptions and just the Giants win their first game. And I don't know. I have a funny feeling. I still do. That being said, I still have the Jaguars covering, but I really want to have the Giants winning outright because I felt like they improved. I feel like they're a confident team this year, even though they were really bad last year. I feel like this could be a surprise game for many. I'm going to have the Jaguars covering, but what do you think?
This is definitely a game with 2 wild cards, a quarterback, and Eli Manning and Blake Bortles. It really can come down to a last drive game. I feel like both teams are not where they were last year. I feel like the Jaguars aren't as good as they were last year, and the Giants are better than what they were last year. It's going to be close, but in the end, I'll take the Jaguars to win in a close one, so I'll also have the Jaguars covering. Bills at Ravens at 1 p.m. Austin, this is going to be my safety pick of the week. I think the Ravens cover with ease. I think the Bills are going to be one of, if not the worst team in football this year. In my Eliminator challenges, I'm picking the Ravens this week to cover a 7.5 point spread. Do you feel the same?
I do not. I feel like a lot of people feel that way about the Bills. I have them not winning outright, but I have them staying within 7.5. I'm not really. Is it because it's Nathan Peterman starting? What's with all the hatred for the Bills?
The hatred, more so just the fact they lost three starting offensive linemen from last year. They're starting a 5th-round pick from last year. If they don't start him, they start a rookie this year who was considered a raw prospect who played at Wyoming. The defense was not very good last year. I think it was kind of a fluky way they got in last year, and they don't really have any weapons on the outside. So I don't think it's a very good team in general, to be honest with you.
That's fair enough. All right. Well, I'm still going to pick the Bills plus 7.5. I feel like most of the people have Ravens covering because I'm actually doing a Survivor League as well, and a lot of people have told me they're choosing the Ravens for their first week. But yeah.
Chiefs at Chargers, now into the 4 o'clock games at 4:05. The Chargers getting 3.5 at home. I came very close to picking the Chiefs winning outright here, but I'm not a huge fan of the Chargers. I know you're a huge fan of Melvin Gordon, and I like Phillip Rivers, but at the same time, the Chargers seem to always let people down. But I can't pick Patrick Mahomes just yet because I haven't seen enough from him. So I'll take the Chargers to cover this week.
It is really so true that the Chargers just manage to disappoint all the time. Last year they had the playoffs in their hands. They just had to beat the Chiefs, and they couldn't do it. They looked like the better team coming in, and they couldn't do it. And I actually had that same thought process. I almost gave the Chiefs this one, but I'm going to go with the Chargers covering because they are a better team. They are the better team on paper, even with all the injuries. I just really, like you said, I like their offense. I like Melvin Gordon. Love Keenan Allen. I like Phillip Rivers. I like all those guys. And their offensive line isn't talked about as being good, but it was a top unit last year. I think they were. I'm pretty confident on this. I would have to look it up again. I'm pretty confident their offensive line was the one that allowed the least amount of sacks last season. So that's something that for some reason people just scrape over. I mean, I don't really remember hearing about the Chargers offensive line, but I think the Chargers are covering in this one. That being said,
lest we forget about Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram too, and they also have Antonio Gates back for one last ride too.
Joey Bosa actually isn't playing this game. Joey Bosa is out this week.
He is out. Okay. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better about it, thinking it's going to be a close game. Seahawks at Broncos. I originally had the Seahawks winning outright, but I don't know. I don't trust that offensive line at all. I feel like it's just Russell Wilson MVP mode, God mode, in order to win this game. And I feel like Case Keenum didn't get enough love last season for what he did, and I'm a believer in Case Keenum. I'll take the Broncos to cover at home.
It's definitely going to be a rough one to start your year off against Von Miller and Bradley Chubb and the Broncos defense when you have that sort of offensive line. If there's every year it's been waiting. It's not been waiting. It's been being put off that Russell Wilson hasn't been injured. I mean, he suffered. I say that he actually suffered an ankle injury last season, but this might be the year where just Russell Wilson's out for the year, tears his ACL in the first game because his offensive line finally gets him killed. This might be it. But that being said, I do think the Seahawks win outright. I went back and forth with this one quite a bit too. I couldn't decide who because both teams are going to be bad this year in my opinion. I think the Broncos are going to end up with the better record, but I don't know if that's going to make them the better team. I have to pick the Seahawks to win outright here, even though no offensive line, and then Earl Thomas just showed up Wednesday and is going to be starting anyway. I don't really have a good reason. I'm just picking the Seahawks to win outright.
All right, Redskins at Cardinals, 425. Cardinals are getting 1 point at home. I'll take the Redskins to win outright. I'm a big Alex Smith fan, so I'll take the Redskins in this one.
I'm going to pick the Cardinals to cover. Last year, Sam Bradford came out week one and performed really well against the Saints. I'm going to pick it again. I'm going to think that Sam Bradford comes out strong. Cardinals cover.
All right, an updated line score that's now 1.5 points, not 1. I don't know if you want to adjust that now. And the Colts are also getting -2. I don't know why it just occurred to me to check all these lines now. If you want to make
okay,
those.
no, that doesn't change anything for me. Neither of those lines.
Okay. Feel free to alter what we wrote down, though, as far as what the lines were, just for the purposes of what we have.
Sure.
All right. Do you need those again?
No, I got them both.
Okay. Cowboys at Panthers. The Panthers are getting 3 points at home. I'm not super high on the Cowboys, but I do understand where people are coming from as far as they'll have a bounce-back year from what they had last year. That being said, though, I'm still going to take the Panthers to cover in this one.
I agree with you. Panthers covers. Cowboys have no wide receivers, and we don't know when Travis Frederick's coming back. It's going to be hard for Zeke to eat when all the teams know that's all that's going to be happening. They're just going to be handing the ball to Zeke. So I have the Panthers covering.
Sunday Night Football, Bears at Packers. I'm going to take the Bears +7 with Khalil Mack. I think it's going to be a pretty close game, but I do think the Packers win this one in the end. What about you?
I think with the 49ers, I think the Packers are the most overrated team going into this season. I don't know why everyone is so high on them. Because I get it, because Aaron Rodgers is at the helm, but the rest of the team is not good. That defense scares the heck out of me. I think that defense is so bad. I mean, really, there's not much there. And so with the Bears, I think the Bears are sneaky. I think the Bears are a sneaky good team. It depends if Mitchell Trubisky is good, but they added Trey Burton. They now have Khalil Mack. That's a big add. Like, it's just, I don't know. I think, oh no, the two Allens confused me. Did they add Allen Hurns or Allen Robinson? I think it's Robinson.
They have
right?
Robinson.
Oh, yeah. They added Allen Robinson, too, so their pass game won't be as bad with Trey Burton and Allen Robinson, I'm thinking. I have the Bears winning outright. I think the Bears are a sneaky team this year. I think that they could sneak into the wild card after adding Khalil Mack. But, yeah, Bears win outright.
All right, the upset of the week for Austin. Jets at Lions on Monday Night Football. The first of 2 Monday Night Football games. Remember, there's a doubleheader in week 1. Lions are getting 6.5 at home. I'm going to take the Lions to cover here.
I'm going to take the Jets plus 6.5. I'm betting on Sam Darnold working out and being good. That's really it. If Sam Darnold isn't good, I could see why the Lions would cover in this one.
Yeah, I like Matthew Stafford better than a guy making his first career start, and I think that'll show in this game. Rams at Raiders to wrap up this the week 1 slate. 10-15, the Rams are getting 4.5 at home. I am taking the Rams to cover. I can't believe the line isn't a lot bigger than this. We've been talking about it for a few weeks now. We think the Raiders are one of the worst teams in football, and I think the Rams are going to have a field day.
Okay, I'm glad I wasn't the first person to look at that line and said, wow, I would have taken that line at probably -9. I think that the Rams might blow them up. The Rams might finish this game like 38 to like 14. It's not going to be pretty for the Raiders. They have no defense.
Alrighty, well that wraps it up for our pick'em section. Let's move on to the Steelers game. One last couple last things to get to. Bold predictions. Austin, name some for me.
Well, my first one is that the Steelers get 9 sacks in this game. Browns' offensive line sucks, and Tyrod Taylor likes to take sacks because he holds on to the ball. So I'm going to go with 9 sacks in this game. Then I think number 2, I was going to change this one, but I think it makes it even bolder with the weather conditions. Denzel Ward doesn't stand a chance against Brown, and Brown ends up with 210 yards and 3 touchdowns by himself. I had to make it bold for AB as well, so that's a bold prediction for AB. And then my third and final one is in his first start, Terrell Edmonds gets 2 interceptions. How about you throw some bold predictions at me?
I think James Conner will finish with 180 all-purpose yards, 150 of those on the ground. He's a big-time player, and I think he's going to have a huge game. I think Vince Williams kicks off his second season as a starter with a bang and collects 3 sacks to go with 10 tackles. And of all people, I think Jalen Samuels gets the Steelers' first touchdown of the season. I think he comes up and has a big touchdown early on in this game. So those are my bold predictions. And final score prediction, Steelers are getting 3.5 on the road in Cleveland. Who you got?
I'm going to take the Steelers to win here 38-17. That means they cover because their line is -4. I think that the Browns have kept it close the past couple of games or past couple of years. But I think that the Steelers team is just – this one is too good. This is such a good team that I think the Steelers run away with this one and finish 38-17. What do you have for this one?
The Steelers are a motivated bunch, and I think they're going to want to just absolutely steamroll the Browns on the ground. A sloppy game with weather, that just means scoring is probably going to be down. And I think the Steelers are going to overwhelm the Browns on both sides of the ball. The Steelers have only lost to the Browns 3 times in the past 14 years, and the Browns have only won once in their last 32 games. They're a better team now, but better could mean a 4-win team, and I don't see one of those 4 wins coming against the Steelers on Sunday. I'll pick the Steelers to cover by winning 20-12 in a defensive struggle. So that'll wrap it up for this week of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Be sure to check us out at Be sure to check out our website, strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com, for the newest Steelers information and podcast information. If you have any questions about the show, email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Austin, is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap this one up?
Nope, just check out tseshop.com. Pretty solid signed memorabilia.
We should have more information for you, too, in the near future, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel Podcast.